A change.org petition is circulating now online calling for the resignation of Kansas City Chiefs starting kicker. Harrison Butker has been sparking controversy online and really all over water coolers since a commencement speech he gave at Benedictine College.
I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Butker went on to talk about the LGBTQ+ community, saying the deadly sins of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it. His words. Butker has spoken out against abortion rights in the past, doubled down on it during the speech. He also rallied against U.S. policies and said President Biden was delusional for supporting abortion rights as a Catholic. I'm sorry, I paused for a moment because I've heard that several times. I just couldn't get past it. For more now, let's bring in ABC News contributor and Sirius XM radio host, Mike Muse. Mike, I know the answer to some of these questions without even asking you, but first, let me get your initial reaction to that speech. We should say it was at Benedictine College, and maybe there were people out there listening who shared his view, but take the first thing, speaking to women. I'm sure many of you are going to do things, but I'm sure the majority of you want to get married and just have babies.
Yeah, which he said your vocation is to be a homemaker. I think there's really interesting timing that his speech came into part, where we're in the backdrop of women's reproductive rights are being challenged, women having agency over their body, really with women's rights to choose, and then the right to enter the workforce, right, and how they choose to see themselves in the workforce. But there's something really interesting about commencement season, Phil, that I find always fascinating, is that this is typically where we see the convergence of freedom of speech with people's feelings, right? And what we're seeing is that happening with Harrison's speech, but we also, too, see what's happening with the college campuses and the protests, and what we saw, too, with the speeches during commencement or the interruptions during commencement around these students' beliefs on what is happening within Israel and Hamas. The freedom of speech protects Harrison to say exactly what it is he's saying. It's when we, as Americans, have to decide, are we uncomfortable with it, or is it becoming unconstitutional? And that is what the uniqueness is of the American democracy. No matter how much we might not like the rhetoric of what the person is saying, is it still constitutional?
The debate is over free speech and hate speech, right? Yeah. And where's the line? Nothing there was hate speech. You may not like what he said, and I fully recognize there are two men here talking about women's reproductive rights, but there are women in our lives that we love. My wife, my mother, my daughter, who is 22 and wants to be a teacher and is getting her master's. I can tell you, if that was her commencement speech, she would have been extremely upset, and I wouldn't have wanted to be the kicker. But the people are calling for him to lose his job. This is something that we've seen over the last decade or so, where you say something a group of people don't like, you should be fired. Do you think he should lose his job?
This is that question of capitalism and where the individual is currently working at. And so because Harrison is working for an NFL team that is privately owned, it's up to the team's decision to decide what they want to do with him. And also, too, depends upon how the Chiefs fans react. The only demographic that matters in this moment is the Kansas City Chiefs fandom. And if the Kansas City Chiefs fandom believes that he should lose his job, they're not going to support the Chiefs, they're losing interest, they're not going to go to the games.
The Chiefs start losing money.
They start losing money. Then at that time, the team will need to decide what needs to be done. Now, when you look at people who deliver very fierce rhetoric that goes against people's emotion, is the company they're working for, is it publicly funded? Right? Is it a public college, an institution of higher learning where they're taking money from state and from federal government? Then that question gets a little bit more serious. But in capitalistic world, it really comes down to the Chiefs. But again, we have to separate what is constitutional versus how people actually feel towards a response. That is freedom of speech. That is in the Constitution.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to create a larger narrative of what that looks like going forward.
There was some sexism in there. There was some homophobia in there. But yeah, I mean, it's a commencement speech.
Now, some will say, does it get in line on the hate speech when it comes to the LGBTQAI? That could be debatable in terms of some of the things that he said.
All right. Mike Muse, always good to see you twice in one morning. And we have not heard from Butker or the team since the commencement speech. We just wanted to point that out, although some city councilors have made their voices known. Mike, thanks so much.